Welcome to the History in Focus channel. Be sure to subscribe so you don't miss more videos like this one. This is the last photograph of Regina K. Walters, a 14-year-old girl who was the final victim of serial killer Robert Rhodes. The image, which appears to show Regina trying to defend herself, makes the scene even more shocking. The Sarco capsule is a device designed for euthanasia. With a single button, it releases nitrogen gas, rapidly reducing oxygen levels and leading to unconsciousness and a painless death within minutes. Unit 731 of the Imperial Japanese Army conducted brutal experiments on Chinese prisoners between 1935 and 1945. Victims were subjected to vivisections, biological testing, and extreme torture. In 1931, psychologists Winthrop and Luella Kellogg raised the chimpanzee Gua alongside their son Donald to test whether it could learn human behaviors. The experiment was stopped after 9 months. The image reveals a macabre detail: a human bone gnawed down. These are survivors of the Andes disaster in 1972, who, after weeks without food, had to resort to cannibalism to endure the extreme cold. The Russian sleep experiment is an urban legend describing scientists keeping prisoners awake with a stimulant gas in the 1940s. After weeks, they became unrecognizable and self-destructive. A soldier shocked by the impact of bombings in World War I. The condition, known as shell shock, caused tremors, panic, and hallucinations, and was poorly understood at the time. A child's drawing depicts the friend whom the little girl claims only she can see. The dark figure in the artwork raises an unsettling mystery, suggesting something beyond childhood imagination. During a family dinner, the Coopers had a terrifying surprise. A body fell from the ceiling at the exact moment the photo was taken. A knife thrower performs in the 1940s, using a young boy as the target. Circus performers often risked their lives in dangerous acts to entertain audiences with precision and suspense. Max Schreck rests backstage while filming Nosferatu, 1922. His intense portrayal of the vampire Count Orlok led to rumors that he might be a real vampire, adding to the film's mystery. A U.S. soldier holds a giant jungle centipede during the Vietnam War in 1967. These venomous arthropods could grow over 12 inches long and were common in the dense forests of the conflict. Russian fisherman Roman Fedortsov caught a frilled shark, a living fossil with 300 sharp teeth. This species, unchanged for 80 million years, preys on squid and even other sharks. In the United States and Europe, checking under the bed to calm children is common. However, in this photo, a frightening figure appears to be lurking. Whether it is a toy or not, the sense of fear is inevitable. In the 1930s, Halloween was marked by rustic papier-mâché masks and improvised costumes. Without mass production, the disguises had a frightening aspect, reinforcing the eerie atmosphere of the celebration. This photo of clowns was discovered in an abandoned nursing home. Many elderly homes hosted costume events, but the wear and tear of the image gives an eerie tone to what should be fun. This image shows a female Omothymus spider in Malaysia, surrounded by her offspring. These arboreal tarantulas can grow quite large and are known for their protective behavior toward their young. The image shows the golden-crowned flying fox, the largest bat in the world, with a wingspan of nearly 6 feet. Though it only eats fruit, its colonies of up to 10,000 bats are an impressive sight in the Philippines. Post-mortem photography was common in the Victorian era to immortalize deceased loved ones. In this image, the young woman in the center is already lifeless, posed alongside family members for a final keepsake. Raymond Robinson, known as Charlie No-Face, suffered a severe electrical accident as a child, losing parts of his face. Despite the scary legends, he led a quiet life in Pennsylvania. During a birthday party, Joe Martinez was photographed with the image of a dog over his shoulder, even though there were no dogs in the house. Experts confirmed the authenticity of the photo with no visible manipulation. Encountering this girl on an empty street on a Friday the 13th would give anyone chills. The date, surrounded by superstitions, is associated with bad luck and has inspired urban legends for centuries. A Japanese magazine features an image that should be ordinary, but the strange angle of a woman's neck and her bizarre expressions cause discomfort. Could it be a photographic mistake or something more? In the dressing room, a clown from an uncertain time period displays a tired expression beneath festive makeup. The contrast between his appearance and what he represents creates an unsettling atmosphere. Russian soldiers wear peculiar costumes in an improvised performance during a break from combat in World War I. The scene represents efforts to maintain morale amid the chaos of war. A 1980s photo at the Grand Canyon captured something strange. In the background, a hooded figure seemed to be watching from the bushes. The most disturbing detail was that it appeared to have no legs, intensifying the mystery. A surreal scene from the Japanese island of Miyakejima shows residents wearing gas masks due to high levels of volcanic activity. The toxic gas seeping from the ground makes this equipment essential for survival. William Hope, a pioneer of spirit photography, claimed to capture ghosts in images. In this photo, a veiled figure appears behind a man, supposedly his deceased sister, Jeremy Wade, holding a giant tigerfish from the Congo. This predator, which can grow to the size of a human, has 1-inch-long teeth similar to those of a 1,000-pound great white shark. Rescued at the age of 13, Jeannie Wiley, the wild child, suffered years of extreme isolation. Raised in silence, her father kept her locked away and punished any sound. Her fate after scientific studies remains uncertain. A Jewish man kneels moments before being executed by soldiers, representing the cruelty of the Holocaust. This moment captures the terror and tragedy experienced by millions during World War II. Two girls pose next to a Santa Claus with a disturbing appearance. The worn-out mask and vacant stare transform the scene into something unsettling, quite different from the festive image of Christmas. At the end of the 19th century, a Chinese woman displays her feet, bound since childhood. The tradition of lotus feet represented beauty and status, but resulted in pain and irreversible deformities. Judith Dahl was deceived by Harvey Glattman, who posed as a photographer to lure victims. In this police photo, she might still have had hope, unaware that he had already killed other women. In the 18th century, this torture chair, covered in sharp nails, was used in interrogations, especially against those accused of witchcraft. The intense pain and blood loss often led to death. In 1964, James Brock, manager of the Monson Motor Lodge, poured muriatic acid into the swimming pool to force black protesters out. The shocking act occurred during protests against racial segregation in the U.S. The photo shows Annalisa Michel, a German woman who died in 1976 after 67 exorcism rituals. She believed she was possessed, but her death resulted from malnutrition and dehydration. Two wax mannequins melting during a heat wave in London in 1929. The deformation of the figures creates a grotesque and disturbing scene. Michael Rockefeller, son of the U.S. Vice President, moments before being cannibalized by the Asmat tribe in Papua New Guinea in the 1960s. He disappeared after a trip, and it is believed the Asmat, known for their cannibalistic rituals, killed and ate him. Charlie Smith, a vintage clown with a frightening appearance. Fortunately, he was just a performer in the 1930s, trying to comfort a scared child. Mabel Chinnery took a photo of her husband in the car after visiting her mother's grave in 1959. To her surprise, her mother appears in the back seat. An expert confirmed the authenticity of the image. In Bridgeport, U.S., an abandoned weapons factory is said to be the site of reports of screams and the sound of chains. A local resident captured an image of the location, and since then, no one dares to pass by. In Allegheny National Forest, Pennsylvania, an automatic wildlife camera was triggered by a deer and captured something unexpected, a spectral figure with the expression of someone screaming. The mystery of the location reinforces its eerie reputation. A young woman takes a seemingly normal selfie, but above the door, demonic eyes appear in the darkness, silently watching her and adding a terrifying element to the image. The image shows a dark hallway leading to 2 rooms. A mysterious figure appears in the background, intensifying the eerie atmosphere and leaving anyone looking at the photo feeling uneasy. The image shows John Wayne Gacy, also known as the Pogo Killer, dressed as a clown during a community event. Gacy was convicted of murdering 33 victims, many of whom were buried in his home. This photograph captures a baseball team composed of prisoners in the early 1910s, whose executions were postponed under a peculiar condition, as long as they kept winning games. The photo features a couple outdoors, unaware of the ghostly figure seemingly approaching the woman from behind. Some interpret the image as a spiritual presence. A teenager was testing his new digital camera with his friend Tommy in 2005. 2 photos taken within seconds revealed something odd. In the flashless image, an unexplainable figure appears in the background. This little girl took this photo while trying to capture the moment when a bird flew into her house. The scary part? No one was behind her when the photo was taken. The Island of the Dolls in the canals of Xochimilco, Mexico, is home to hundreds of hanging dolls. It is said that they were placed as a tribute to the spirit of a girl who drowned there. One of the earliest depictions of Ronald McDonald, the McDonald's mascot, shows a different costume and makeup from the classic version. The image with a crying child reinforces the common fear of clowns. This portrait of the Lawson family was taken days before patriarch Charlie Lawson, second from the right, murdered everyone in the photo on Christmas 1929. Only his son Arthur, top left, survived. George Metesky, the Mad Bomber, planted over 30 bombs in New York between 1940 and 1956, injuring 15 people. Arrested in 1957, he was declared insane and sent to a psychiatric hospital. In a recent photo taken in Manila, 2 friends are smiling while being photographed by a third person. However, a mystery appears. A translucent figure is holding the arm of the girl on the right, leaving everyone perplexed. A nursing team took a mysterious photo on a hospital monitor showing a dark figure over a patient who died just a few hours later. The event occurred in 1959. In the 1930s and 1940s, beauty treatments such as using carbon dioxide to freeze freckles were common. Patients had their eyes covered, nostrils blocked, and breathed through a tube. This eerie image, captured while a photographer tested his equipment, is chilling. The presence of an entity, identified as the spirit of a young boy in pajamas, adds an intriguing mystery to the scene. This young woman takes a cheerful selfie inside a car, but in the background, on the rear window, something unsettling appears. A blurred figure with a hand pressed against the glass. On 4chan, a story emerged about a group exploring an abandoned kindergarten. In the basement, they heard laughter and shot at someone in a Mickey Mouse costume, only to later discover it was their friend. In the picture, a little girl cries, saying a boy is scaring her. When reviewing the image, the mother notices a strange presence at knee level, creating a chilling mystery. Tourists in Croatia took a photo in a foggy forest, but a tall, shadowy figure in the background caught their attention. Was it a ghost or just a tree? In Portland, a man found his tires slashed and a note left on his car reading, "You were so easy to find, Mark. You should drive more carefully." An old Halloween costume combining a child's dress with a macabre skull and horned mask. These rudimentary disguises were common in the early 20th century, creating a chilling effect. 2 children smile as their hair stands up unusually due to a strong electrical field. This scene was captured moments before lightning struck them, creating a tense moment upon imagining what happened next. The Mothman, a mysterious figure described as a humanoid with moth-like wings that appears before disasters, was last seen on September 13, 2003 at the Silver Bridge, which collapsed shortly after, killing 46 people. Several televisions of Reddit users simultaneously froze, displaying the message, "Many will die." The apparent random technical glitch became a viral and unsettling moment. These disturbing drawings, accompanied by the phrase, "The end is near," were found on the walls of an abandoned psychiatric asylum. The stomach contents of a psychiatric patient who died due to pica disorder, characterized by the consumption of non-food objects, as shown in the photo. The interior of an industrial poultry farm at night, with hundreds of chickens perched on racks. The scene conveys a sense of claustrophobia and discomfort due to overcrowding and darkness. A 19th century Siberian bear hunting suit, made of padded leather and adorned with hundreds of 1-inch iron spikes. This was the only known suit to survive a bear attack. The Brown Lady photo, taken in the 1930s, shows the supposed ghost of Lady Dorothy Townsend descending the stairs of Rainham Hall, England. One of the most iconic paranormal images ever captured. A child playing becomes disturbing when, in the background, a humanoid figure appears crawling. The apparent reaction of the creature to the child raises doubts about what was truly captured. Taken in 1963 in England, this image captures the alleged specter of Newby Church. The ghostly figure with a hooded face remains one of the most intriguing mysteries of paranormal photography. In a photo from 1920, a couple poses without noticing the figure of a young girl in the background. Old images often reveal mysterious silhouettes, fueling stories of apparitions and unexplained phenomena. Masked figures emerge from the trees, creating a disturbing scene. Ancient cultures used masks in rituals, and the sense of mystery and fear they provoke still persists today. After the Chernobyl disaster, this kindergarten was abandoned. Children's objects remain intact, covered in radioactive dust, reminding us of the sudden evacuation of Pripyat in 1986. In 2014, a man entered a tiger enclosure at a zoo, coming face to face with the predator. White tigers, rare in nature, possess hunting instincts, making the encounter fatal. Dennis Rader, known as the BTK Killer, poses with his daughter without raising suspicion. For decades, he led an ordinary life while hiding his crimes, only being arrested in 2005. Dennis Rader, the BTK Killer, wore this terrifying mask during his crimes. Acting for decades without being discovered, he was only caught in 2005 after sending clues that led to his capture. Two scuba divers pose at the bottom of the sea in Queensland, while behind them, a rigid figure can be seen. The figure was later identified as Tina Watson, who had been murdered by her husband. While reviewing photos of her son on the computer, a mother noticed something terrifying. An unknown girl appeared in the doorway. Unexplained appearances in photos have fueled paranormal reports for centuries. In 1980, forensic experts reconstructed the faces of 9 unidentified victims of John Wayne Gacy. Known as the Killer Clown, he murdered at least 33 young men between 1972 and 1978. In 1982, children admitted to the psychiatric hospital in Deir el-Qamar, Lebanon, were tied to radiators. The image exposed the inhumane conditions faced by patients in institutions at the time. This image shows Princess Diana, her security guard Trevor Rees-Jones, and driver Henry Paul, moments before the fatal crash in Paris, 1997. The car was fleeing paparazzi when it collided in the Pont de l'Alma tunnel. This is the last recorded photo before the Dyatlov Pass incident in 1959. The group of 9 mountaineers mysteriously disappeared in the Ural Mountains, and their bodies were found days later under unexplained conditions. This image shows the toolkit used by Ted Bundy, including ropes, gloves, a mask, a drill, and plastic bags. These items were found in the serial killer's car at the time of his arrest. John Lennon signs a record for Mark David Chapman just hours before the tragic incident in 1980. This image captures one of the last moments of the ex-Beatle, unaware of the fate that awaited him. This was the last photo taken by Dalen Pua before he disappeared. He was exploring the forbidden Haiku Stairs Trail in Hawaii when he captured this image, in which some believe they see a strange figure. Dennis Rader, the BTK killer, terrorized Wichita, Kansas between 1974 and 1991. Captured in 2005, he kept disturbing photos of himself tied up and detailed records of his crimes. The megamouth shark discovered in 1976. Measuring up to 18 feet long and weighing 2,500 pounds, this rare shark with a 4-foot wide mouth was captured in 2016, 3 miles off Port Oise, Japan. 4 UFOs were captured in Salem, Massachusetts in 1952. The photo, taken by Shel Alpert, remains unexplained and is one of the most famous archived in the Library of Congress. After the death of Mr. Convermere, a photographer captured an image of his favorite chair. In the picture, a silhouette appears seated, resembling the deceased. Since then, the chair has maintained an eerie aura. Montague Cooper, owner of a furniture store in the early 20th century, took a photo of his products, but one detail stood out. A mysterious hand appears in the image. Some speculate it might belong to the former owner. The shadow of a man in Hiroshima, imprinted on the ground by the explosion of the atomic bomb Little Boy on August 6, 1945. The extreme heat of 10,000 degrees Fahrenheit left these ghostly marks, including that of a human victim. In a church in Worstead, Diane Berthelot was photographed while praying during the summer of 1984. Months later, upon reviewing the photos, the family noticed the figure of a white-robed woman behind her. A masked woman poses in an unsettling photo. The lack of leaves on the trees suggests short days and long nights, dismissing the idea of Halloween. Perhaps it is part of a play, or something darker. The figure in the image appears strange and disturbing, as if it is watching the security camera at the door. This nighttime appearance created a sense of discomfort and mystery. The staircase leading to the ward for the insane in an abandoned penitentiary in Missouri, showing a dark and oppressive environment with the possible presence of a spirit or entity. A dental chair located in one of the rooms of the Eastern State Penitentiary, famous for being one of the most haunted locations in the United States. The photo shows Charles Manson on his wedding day in 1955, before he became the infamous cult leader responsible for a series of brutal crimes in the 1960s. An authentic 16th century plague doctor mask designed to protect physicians during plague outbreaks. The peculiar beak shape was meant to store aromatic substances as protection against the disease's odor. The attempt to recreate Santa Claus in this photo results in a disturbing figure. The terrifying mask and vacant stare would certainly make any child uncomfortable in front of him. A photo taken on Christmas 2009 shows a mysterious figure standing in the hallway. The person who captured the image believes it to be their father, who had passed away in June of that year, adding a macabre element to the picture. A Polish child draws a representation of their home while living in a concentration camp, depicting innocence amidst the harsh realities of childhood in such conditions. 2 young women smile for the camera while posing in the wild landscapes of Panama. Chris Kremers and Lisanne Froon were hiking the El Pianista Trail before mysteriously disappearing. 2 young men pose for a photo, one of them holding an orange cup. The man in the front is Tyler Hadley, who had killed his parents earlier that day and then threw a party in their house. Though it looks like a scene from a horror game, the image actually depicts the aftermath of a fire in a medical clinic. The artwork on the windows was burned in a way that created an eerie appearance. During the 1950s, the United States built fictional cities inhabited by mannequins for nuclear tests. The peaceful setting soon revealed the destructive impact of simulated explosions. In 2015, reporter Allison Parker and cameraman Adam Ward were brutally attacked live by a former colleague. The crime, broadcast on television, reignited debates about security and violence against journalists. Serial killer Rodney Alcala accumulated photos of strangers, including this woman. Many of those he photographed were victims, and their fates remain uncertain. He was arrested in 1979 and later convicted. Police dig up the backyard of Gary Ridgway, known as the Green River Killer. Arrested in 2001, he confessed to dozens of crimes, becoming one of the deadliest serial killers in the United States. In the 19th century, an anthropologist presents two shrunken heads linked to the Jivaroan people of Ecuador. These tsansas were created to imprison spirits and prevent adversaries from avenging their deaths. Richard Ramirez, known as the Night Stalker, appears in court. Convicted of multiple murders in California in the 1980s, his cold demeanor and defiant behavior marked his trial. This X-ray reveals dozens of needles inserted into the pelvic region of Albert Fish, a 1920s murderer. He inflicted pain upon himself as part of his disorders, and these needles were discovered after his arrest. This 1965 photo shows Ted Bundy in his high school yearbook. Years later, he would become one of the most notorious serial killers in the United States, responsible for dozens of crimes in the 1970s. This drawing of Ed Gein was made by John Wayne Gacy, two of the most infamous serial killers in the United States. Gacy, who also painted in prison, depicted Gein, who inspired horror movie characters. Lon Chaney dressed as a clown in the 1928 film Laugh, Clown, Laugh. Known as the Man of a Thousand Faces, Chaney was a master of makeup and portrayed iconic silent film roles. This cell was used during the Salem witch trials in the 17th century. Accused witches were kept in poor conditions before being tried, with many facing torture and execution. The Amityville house, the setting of one of the most infamous crimes in the U.S., was where Ronald DeFeo Jr. murdered his family in 1974. Later, it inspired stories of hauntings and films. An old Halloween costume with a disturbing appearance. In the early 20th century, handmade masks and improvised outfits created unsettling visuals, quite different from modern costumes. The eruption of Mount Sakurajima in 1914 covered the city in a thick cloud of ash. It was the largest volcanic activity in Japan in the 20th century, transforming the region's geography. Jeffrey Dahmer appears in a high school photo alongside a classmate. Before becoming one of the most notorious serial killers in U.S. history, he was seen as an eccentric young man who played strange pranks. The image shows a basketball card of Mark Jackson from the Knicks with a game scene in the background. Curiously, in the stands, the Menendez brothers can be seen before they were arrested for murdering their parents. Coffins lined up in a funeral ceremony for the victims of John Wayne Gacy. The serial killer murdered 33 young men between 1972 and 1978, hiding many bodies beneath his house. What appears to be a charming country house in upstate New York is actually the Trudeau Sanatorium for tuberculosis treatment. In this 1948 photo, a nurse in white walks around, reinforcing the eerie atmosphere of the place. A 1997 photo taken by Dennis Russell shows his grandmother, but in the background, a man appears whom the family identified as his grandfather, who had passed away in 1984. The apparition puzzled everyone. The crime scene shows the message written in lipstick by the lipstick killer after the murder of Frances Brown in 1945. William Hirons was arrested in 1946, but claimed he confessed under police coercion. Jolie Callan, 18, was photographed by her ex-boyfriend moments before he murdered her at Chehaw State Park, Alabama, in 2015. He shot her and pushed her body off a cliff. The image shows the mask used by Edward Poynell, the Beast of Jersey, who terrorized the island in the 1960s. He attacked and raped at least 13 people, beating and strangling his victims before fleeing. Joseph Goebbels at the League of Nations meeting in 1933. Moments earlier, he was smiling, but upon discovering that the photographer was Jewish, his gaze changed to what became known as the Eyes of Hate. A Japanese spider crab, a real creature that inhabits Japan's coastal depths. With a leg span of over 12 feet and weighing up to 42 pounds, it is the arthropod with the largest leg span. Bran Castle in Transylvania is known as Dracula's Castle. Although the famous vampire is fictional, the castle has historical ties to Vlad the Impaler, also known as Vlad Dracula, who inspired the legend of Dracula. The fang-tooth fish, a terrifying-looking yet real creature, inhabits ocean depths of up to 16,400 feet. Its appearance and ability to suck in prey make it a nightmare, even in the distant deep sea. A recent photo in Rhode Island shows Penny's grandmother, who passed away in 1990, standing beside her 2-year-old granddaughter. Experts verified the authenticity of the image, ruling out any digital manipulation, leaving the case shrouded in mystery. A well-lit living room seems ordinary at first glance, but in the left corner, a peculiar face appears resting under a pillow. The unsettling question arises: where is the body? A disturbing sight indeed. A girl poses calmly on a park bench at night, but in the background, a mysterious and distant figure stands out. The enigmatic presence adds a chilling touch to a scene that, until then, seemed ordinary. Alone at home on a snowy night, everything seemed quiet until the next morning. Walking into the kitchen, fresh footprints on the floor revealed that he was not as alone as he had thought. The mystery of who passed through the house remains. In southern Mexico, the Island of the Dolls was created by Don Julian Santana Barrera to appease the spirit of a drowned girl. After his death in 2001, the site became a tourist attraction. One of the participants in the Stanford Prison Experiment, 1971, is seen with a paper bag over his head, symbolizing the dehumanization of prisoners. The study highlighted the effects of power on human psychology. A peculiar scene was captured by a store's security camera near a red box. A person, leaning in an unusual way, appears to be in an unnatural position. In the photo, Joachim Kroll reenacts one of his murders after being arrested. Known as the Ruhr Cannibal, he killed and consumed parts of his victims and was sentenced to life in prison. A woman stands on the roof in the middle of the night, creating an eerie atmosphere. The scene, shared on Reddit, caused unease and generated various speculations. The T-shirt of Jacob Wetterling, who disappeared 29 years ago. It was found after years of searching, marking a tragic chapter in the history of missing children. A tarantula infected by the parasitic cordyceps fungus, whose filaments spread throughout the arachnid's body, altering its appearance in a grotesque and disturbing way. The Old Smoky electric chair used to execute 125 prisoners at the Tennessee State Penitentiary. The chair is on display, highlighting its macabre history. The bus that became the final resting place of Christopher McCandless, found in 1992 after he lived in isolation in the Alaskan wilderness. His body was discovered by a hunter. Katarina Detzel, a mentally ill patient, poses with the figure of a man she made out of straw in her bed in 1910. Her creation remains one of the most macabre images of the time. The Serbian dancing woman, an urban legend that went viral on TikTok, shows a woman in traditional attire dancing at night while holding a knife. According to the legend, anyone who looks at her or passes by her street is pursued and attacked. The image shows a worn-out wall with deep scratches, seemingly reflecting the pain and suffering of people in moments of despair, evoking a sense of tragedy and loss. On Zombie Road in Missouri, known for its eerie sounds and ghostly sightings, photos taken in 1959 revealed silhouettes near a river, but without reflections in the water. The location was empty, puzzling investigators and fueling the mystery. This image shows a psychiatric patient drawing faces on the walls of his room. It is believed that he was trying to create self-portraits based on how he saw himself, a phenomenon often observed in severe psychological disorders. Cheryl Bradshaw and Rodney James Alcala posed together on The Dating Game in the 1970s. Alcala, already in the middle of a killing spree, was rejected by Cheryl, who found him strange. David A. Johnston smiles while studying Mount St. Helens. 13 hours later, he would be a victim of the eruption, with his last words broadcast over the radio. His remains were never found. The image features a peculiar doll with two faces, one smiling and another darkly reflected in the mirror. The contrast between the expressions makes the object even more unsettling. Four friends pose for a photo in Beirut, just seconds before an explosion in the golden car in the background. The image, taken moments before the attack, conveys an eerie feeling. A teenager poses with friends while wearing a Darth Vader costume. After the photo was taken, he used the sword to kill 2 students and injure others in a tragic incident that followed. A family is gathered before becoming known for their involvement in the infamous Amityville horror case. The image was taken in the house where the horrifying murders occurred. The image is a surveillance recording from a shopping mall showing James Bulger, a 2-year-old, being led away by Robert Thompson and John Venables, who kidnapped, tortured, and killed him in 1993. A massive sinkhole in the middle of a cornfield in Turkey. These sinkholes occur due to the collapse of underground cavities caused by erosion, often linked to excessive water extraction. The image is an extreme close-up of a wolf spider's face, highlighting its large eyes and detailed hairs. This species is known for its keen vision and solitary hunting behavior. Aaron Huey sits with his legs dangling over the edge of the Great Gorge of the Ruth Glacier in Alaska. At 3,700 feet deep, it is the deepest glacial gorge in the world. Huey trusted the ice layer below him, aware of the fatal risk of a fall. In 1908, a young worker known as a trapper boy poses inside a mine in West Virginia. Child labor was common in these conditions, facing extreme risks to open and close ventilation doors. The Hilo tsunami in 1946 devastated Hawaii after an earthquake in Alaska. Giant waves destroyed buildings and killed over 150 people. This tragedy led to the creation of the tsunami warning system.